March Madness started Thursday officially. Aside from the first 4 games. I guess I'll just start with this, and I loved this week, this weekend of games, both round 64, round of 32. I thought we got great games. I mean, obviously there were numerous blowouts, numerous non-close games, some disappointments. Overall, a bit of a lack of madness. But I think my counter to that would be, there's like no mid-majors left alive. Yeah, there's only one double-digit seed left in the Sweet 16, and it's Texas, horns down. But we got a lot of good games from mid-majors, even if they didn't get over the hump. I'm thinking about like the Furman game against UConn. They were in that game till pretty much to the end, and then Reed, I'm blanking on his first name. Terrace Reed just was a monster, like a 30-20 game, 31 points, 27 rebounds, and he was just too much for Furman to handle. High Point pulls off the win in the first game, but even in their second game, they gave Arkansas everything they wanted, just missed a couple shots down the stretch and couldn't pull it off. Siena just over Duke, leading for a good chunk of that game and keeping it pretty much down to the wire with just playing those 5 guys. It was very impressive, very fun to watch.
VCU beat North Carolina in a game that my model actually had the spread as being 0.
And they went to overtime.
And so if going to overtime isn't a spread of 0, I feel like I should get, something for that.
It's not.
Yeah, I know it's not, but it was still quite funny. I was watching that.
But that's a good one to bring up. VCU comes back from down 19 and pulls off a shocker against North Carolina. We had a lot of good games and a lot of good showings.
Santa Clara, Kentucky.
Yeah, Santa Clara, Kentucky. It's just a fantastic game. The Falls Summit.
The first 15 minutes of Texas A&M Houston.
Followed by the double peak. The first 15 minutes of Texas A&M Houston before Houston went on a 30-4 run and really pulled away. I enjoyed it. I thought we got great stuff. I thought there was a lot of high-level play. Once again,
we had the shots. We had the Johnston high point shot. Chase Johnston high point shot. We had the Santa Clara 3, the Kentucky half court 3. I was pretty pleased. I would rate the first weekend. I'm gonna give it a 10 because I really enjoyed it. I feel like it had I don't know what more you want from it, and I feel like we had upsets, we had buzzer beaters, we had half court shots, and we had really good basketball. I came away feeling fulfilled. My thirst was satiated.
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm not
definitely
coming away
not a 10.
fulfilled. I probably would say between a 7 and an 8.
That low?
I mean, this event just does have such a high bar for glory and for stuff that can happen.
Yeah. And maybe I'm taking last year. My expectations, JP, might have been lowered too much by the outcome of last year and how disappointing it was. So maybe my expectations were lowered too far, which is why I feel so pleased with the outcome this year.
The games are great. That take is very valid. But for the general public, I think they would have preferred more upsets. And even last year, you would point to that was an anomaly, given the current state of the game. But no, I think a lot of the games were really good. There were a few blowouts here and there that weren't worth really watching, but even some of them, they were really fun blowouts. Nebraska and Troy, that first game, seeing the big red crowd there in OKC was incredible. I really thought that game was pretty solid. Alabama Hofstra was a pretty solid game, a lot of scoring. Phylon
it was
insane.
close for the first half, and then just pulled away.
Michigan Howard was close. So there were a lot of close games, and a lot of the higher seeds just couldn't execute down the stretch. Especially on Friday, a lot of the higher seeds just couldn't get it done.
Lower seeds, higher number, lower seed.
I say yes, you're right. Higher numbers,
lower seeds
is what I mean, not higher seed.
A lot of them had their chances late and just couldn't quite close. And I also another positive of this March Madness is we just had. I mean, there was a pretty high level of play in general across a lot of the games. Now there were some you tuned into a couple games and was like, wow, this is so gross. This is horrible basketball, and there's some joy in that, being a college basketball fan. But there's also just such a high level of individual play. I'm talking about big shots being hit. We got to see a lot of top draft prospects trying to put their mark on this tournament, even though a lot of them are marked out. I mean, A.J. DeBonce goes out and emptying the clip against Texas on Thursday. Got no help. Darren Peterson's out. We got to see a little bit of him. We've seen Cam Boozer, but even guys like Tyler Tanner, who got eliminated, had a huge game against Nebraska, and his shot literally to win it is half in, half out. Kingston Flemings, we've seen multiple games, and he's looked good. Like, there's just been a lot of, like, Phylon, mentioning Phylon's a great point. He's had multiple great games now, and it's like you can see Darius Acuff, why we've talked about these guys all year and why this draft class is getting such a buzz. And to see a lot of those guys deliver on the biggest stage has been pretty cool. I wish a couple more of them were still alive in the tournament, like a DeBonsa or a Peterson. But it's honestly how the cookie crumbled.
Also, let's not forget a 1 seed has already been sent home.
Correct.
That is something I don't think a lot of people expected, just because it felt like the 1 seeds this year were really, really dominant. And then there were a couple 2 seeds that were in that group, right? Like, you could make an argument for like a Houston being up there as like a fantastic team. But no one, I don't think, was expecting for a 1 seed to go home.
There's a minute we almost had 3 gone in the first weekend.
Yeah, which would have been insane considering talking about how dominant they have been, right? That's a good point. I will say Florida always felt like the weakest of 1 seeds, but also given the draw they got, I'll be the first. I didn't give Iowa any chance in that game, just given the talent profile.
And not that Clemson-Iowa game was an ugly game, too.
So
it wasn't
game.
like you came
Correct.
out of that going, oh, this team is hot. This team's got a chance.
But Ben McCullum and Bennett Sturts have become very good at kind of imposing their style on almost anyone, and he's a fantastic coach. And Florida took too long to get settled into that game, and so kind of by the time they found their rhythm, suddenly we're already in crunch time, and then kind of really who cares what kind of rhythm you have? You don't have any chance to pull away at that point. There's like 5 possessions left in the game.
Yeah, so now we get noted Big Ten basketball rivalry, Iowa versus Nebraska, to start weekend 2.
That's fantastic. I
no,
cannot
it
wait
is.
for
I'm
that
very
game.
excited for that.
Gosh, that is going to be great. But it is disappointing for Florida. Do y'all agree with their decision on how they played the final play, which was Todd Golden says the intention was to be aggressive and foul because they just basically want the ball back. They basically want the game in their hands. You foul if they hit both free throws. It's now a tie game, and you move on. And I think not only did they say the intention was to foul, the intention was to double Bennett Sturts and make someone else shoot the free throws. Well, Bennett Sturts gets away and kicks to the corner. The shot's knocked down, so it doesn't pan out that way. But what do y'all think about that decision?
I'm playing to defend,
Yeah.
personally. I don't care if it's a 2-point lead. I understand that. I only understand that in football. Like, I only understand in my years of playing Madden and college football and whatever, I understand the notion of I'd rather, let's say, a minute 45 left, I'm up 7. A guy breaks away, he can score. I'd rather him score so I don't have to deal with the fact of, oh, he may go for 2 right now.
Yeah.
Or at the end of the game with 1 second left and it's one play. I'll let him. If he wants to go for 2 right now, go for it. And now I can go and get a field goal. Like, I'm fine with, like, letting someone score in that instance. I think it makes sense if you trust your offense, which I do. I really trust my offense.
Sure.
But in basketball, no, I don't understand that. Especially, I wonder. I really, because I don't feel like we've. I can't recall a coach mentioning it, but when the notion of which they do it on purpose, overinflating the basketballs too, making it harder to make shots.
Yeah.
I would go and make the guy make a shot, especially when you should trust your defense enough in that key moment to get some kind of stop.
Yeah, I don't like it either because I agree, like, just trust your defense. Your defense has been the calling card of this team, the front court size and, like, the switchability of that group. Like, you should just be able to get a stop, and then, hey, if you don't get the stop, now potentially the ball's in your hands with, a little bit of time left, depending on how Iowa plays it, whether they hold for last shot or whatever. But also, as we saw in their subsequent, last possession, they didn't even get a shot up. And it was good defense, and, Zaven Lee got stuck in a spot. But, like, that's been the one kind of concern about Florida basketball this whole season is, like, when push comes to shove, is there going to be a guard that can go make a play to win, right? And so even, you foul, they make both free throws, maybe you draw up a different play, but, like, you're still most likely asking a guard to go make a play to help you win that game. And I just don't know if that would have gone very well anyway. To Todd Golden's credit, he's a pretty analytical thinking coach, and this is kind of the hill he's he's planted his flag on that. Like, we're gonna do this. Is how we're gonna go about it. So I do in some way respect, like, if that's your philosophy, stick to your guns. And it just didn't work out. And maybe next year they do it, and the guy bricks both free throws, and you're in a fantastic spot.
I think maybe it's possible to do it in the NBA because you have the timeout and you can advance the ball to half court, and then you can actually get some kind of play. But as we saw in like 3 or 4 games this weekend.
I was going to talk about the Ohio State TCU game.
The Ohio State TCU one. The Vanderbilt play wasn't great, but we got to look at half
crazy
court.
Shot.
Like, we had multiple instances where it showed getting a guy to anything within the 3-point line with 4 seconds left inbounding from your own basket is almost impossible. It is really, really hard to do. So I could see it in the NBA when you can advance the ball, but with the timing left, it just doesn't make any sense to me. That being said, it will be pinpointed as maybe the point where they lost the game. They didn't lose the game because of that. They lost the game because they just didn't get settled and weren't in the right. They shouldn't be in a close game with Iowa at that point in the game. They should have taken it from the get-go, and they had to really kind of make a raging comeback just to really even be in a spot.
Agreed.
But you were going to talk about
all
the plays.
Well, I was going to talk about the Ohio State TCU game because that
first game of Thursday.
Yeah, and the first loss for my model, and I was very mad because I was like, Ohio State, you're telling me that's the best you could do is to get the ball kind of to half court and then get up just this wimp. Like, it just did not feel like they put their best foot forward on that final play. Now it's really difficult to get 4 seconds is not a lot of time, but I still feel like you had time to get a better look than that. But that's not super important.
It'll be something when I become a coach one day that I'm going to, because there aren't advancing timeouts in any basketball until the NBA.
Women's basketball. You can coach girls basketball.
There is women's basketball. That's right. So I hope it becomes a thing in general because I just think it's way better for the game.
I think we'll get it with the rise of fouling up 3 becoming more prevalent. It's easier to force a team to not be able to foul up 3 when you can call a timeout and advance it, and then it's like, okay, we really can't foul because they may just all of a sudden go into their shooting motion, and then it's gonna be shooting foul. They're gonna get 3 shots anyway.
But it's gonna be something I work on where I will spend time. Maybe it's the end of practice at some break in practice, and I'm gonna find out who my best half court shooter is because every team's got one.
Yeah.
For me, like subtle flex, it was me. I was the best at it. I had 3 or 4 different half court, not buzzer beater to win, but to end a quarter.
Yeah.
Throughout my high school playing career, so I'm gonna find my guy, and then
So what you're saying is you're not clutch.
I was. I mean, I had 2 game winners in my entire basketball playing
just
career.
giving you crap because you said they weren't to win the game. They were just at the end of quarters.
And I know for a fact I missed 2 game winners as well. I think 2 for 4.
50's pretty good in the clutch.
Very good.
You really can't hit on that number. Would you say Tyler Tanner is a good half-court shooter? The
Clearly.
fact he's had 2 in and outs this season alone within a month, but he didn't make them. But they were right on the money, and that's a stinger. That's how I'm just gonna real quick run through a couple of my favorite moments or things that happened this weekend, both the good and the bad. St. John's Dylan Darling not scoring all game and asking Rick Pitino in the huddle to draw the play up for him, and then proceeding to score the buzzer beater game-winning layup over, I'll just say, kind of consensus top 3 prospect in the upcoming NBA draft in Darren Peterson. Electric moment. You don't beat that. Our boy Riley Kugel and UCF going, I believe, 5 of 16 from the free throw line and a 4-point loss to UCLA is that's nightmare fuel. It doesn't get worse than that. And with each subsequent miss, the agony and anguish on their players' face, whoever missed it, of just being like, I can't believe this is happening, but you can't. You just, it's too late. You can't stop it. They can't shake it. High Point was one of my favorite mid-majors I've ever watched from a tournament standpoint. The fearlessness and just the tempo they played with and the amount of scorers and athletes they had. Bit of an aside, but I think High Point will become just a staple of mid-major basketball with the fact that they actually have a good bit of money for a mid-major school. And so they'll actually probably be able to keep a couple players around and kind of fill out a complete roster and have we were watching the Wisconsin game, with our friend Chromie, and he's in the chat sometimes. But like, they were one of the mid-majors where it felt like they were actually going punch for punch and not just like holding on for dear life and like praying that Duke misses their shots and praying that their shots go in. No, they were playing with full confidence. They were going shot for shot with Wisconsin and beat them, and they really were going shot for shot with Arkansas. They just the defense at the end of the day wasn't there, and so if you go shot for shot with no defense, you're kind of putting yourself in a bit of a 50-50 coin flip, right? But they were a joy to watch. Rob Martin, Chase Johnson, that story was really good. Terry Anderson, they had a lot of fun players. Those are probably my favorite moments. I mean, the Kentucky Santa Clara is like a classic all-timer in terms of the false summit followed by the bang, and even just the way Kentucky's season has gone and such, like, how disappointing it was. When that shot went in for Santa Clara, I was like, yep, that feels like the right ending for this Kentucky basketball season. But then Otega Owe says, like, I'm not done yet. Yeah. And they go win. Then they get blown out in the round of 32, so it wasn't really like there was a great end to that story. But that was a great moment. Yeah, there's just, that's why March Madness is so good. Is there's just like, even in games that aren't good, right? There's like big shots made or like goofy moments. South Florida, Louisville, like South Florida didn't want to hold on to the basketball for the first 10 minutes of the game. It's just being like pinballed around. And then they settle in the second half, and all of a sudden their press is making it to where Louisville doesn't, like, Louisville's actively getting the ball ripped out of their hands multiple times. And it's just like, what am I watching? And then Louisville ends up winning. But just stuff like that up and down the slate each day is why you watch. But I don't know if either of y'all have like a kind of a random favorite moment that stuck out.
I mean, my favorite was losing my voice on Discord watching the High Point game, but I don't want to talk about that anymore because that's all anyone talked about from the weekend. But, like, I felt bad. I was like, I really hope I'm not screaming too loud. I'm trying to move the mic away, but, like, I'm actually, like, screaming. It was insane.
I guess I'll take – mine would be my flowers for Virginia and Jakari White.
Huge game from him.
Wright State. It just felt like the way that he shot the ball confidently – so much that he was going to be in a position where he would take full advantage and have a kind of March moment. But then
he's the reason they won that game.
Then he misses the layup to tie the game against Tennessee and kind of cost them their season. And then the airballs a a huge one.
The airball 3 was bad. He's a 45% free 3-point shooter. Yeah. A wide open corner 3, right, and just nowhere near.
I have a question. Talk about missing and making. I can't put my finger on it, and I think it's just because it's, an elimination tournament, and so it matters more. But, I feel like more shots get made. And I maybe it's just because they stand out more, but I think there's a lot of reasons that makes March Madness so special. You're watching more basketball. 99% of basketball fans are watching a lot more basketball during March Madness than normal. You have the elites who, after work every night, they go home, put on basketball. They've got the quad box of the big, primetime game that night. So, but most people are watching way more basketball and consuming way more basketball. The shots mean more. But I also feel like guys either just get hot and they just go on runs and shots fall, like the Iowa shot, right? Like, that just feels like a shot where in a regular season game, there's a really good chance that just doesn't happen. And maybe it would. But to me, I'm just watching that and thinking, no way, when there's definitely a way. But it just feels like way more meaningful.
I do think there's something to it of the moment makes or breaks you. The lights are brighter than expected. It's like things can spiral on you real quick. You miss your first couple shots, you never get out of it. And some people, they do just feel like they're built for the moment. I mean, think about Walter Clayton last year. The amount of big shots he hit through that run, it just kind of felt like in a big moment he was going to hit his shot. But there definitely also is something to it of it's the tournament, it's win or go home. So even honestly, a lot of the crowds were pretty good. I was impressed with a lot of the crowds, and so partially because some teams were playing basically home court, home court, advantages. But a 3-point shot with 15 minutes left in the first quarter, and it's the first 3 of the game from that team's best player to put them up 5 going into the media timeout, and it's wow, that's a huge shot. And it's in a regular season game, it's a 3, bang, but it just doesn't have the same weight. I'm even thinking about, home field advantage, but because Nebraska travels so well. But that first Nebraska-Troy game, Sanford, Price, or is it
Price
Hayden?
Sanford.
Okay.
Price.
I don't remember.
Price is right.
Price is Right, correct. So that's a great call.
Yeah.
And his brother Peyton is the older one. He hits his second three to put them up like 6 or 8 going into like the under 12 timeout, and it's like, wow, this place is electric. Like, wow, this is so cool. And also, I'm going, wow, I probably shouldn't have picked Troy because this looks really bad just the way this is going. But like, yeah, you just those moments, and so every made shot just sticks in your mind a little more.
I think that's the big thing is they just stick more, and so it makes it feel like there are more made shots and more big threes. When, I mean, in a state basketball game, there's a couple. In a normal season, this wasn't a great season, but like last year, I'm sure that in close games there were several big threes, right? Where it's like, oh, if you don't make that, then the other team goes on a run. They just don't stick out as much because it's not March Madness.
Yeah, and also like every moment sticks out because the moment is big, but also like you go into the first couple rounds of the tournament like hunting the big moments. So it's always like, oh, this guy's hit a couple of threes. Is he about to be some guy that becomes a tournament star? Or like you're like hunting for those moments, if that makes sense. So I think it also once again makes them stick out more. Anything else? We good to move
Ready
on?
for weekend 2? We got one Cinderella left.
I will not call them a Cinderella.
They're not a Cinderella.
If anything, Iowa feels like the Cinderella.
Yeah.
Even though, they're not really like a great Cinderella, but just like, their coaches kind of, got it in the mud.
I would
D2, their star point guard, started D2.
I'm not going to call Nebraska Cinderella, but maybe one of the best stories
They're
left.
a good story. I mean, they finally got the monkey off their back of not
never
winning.
won a tournament game,
and now they're in the second weekend.
Sweet 16. And so if they win another game or even 2, and then they're like in the Final Four, like Elite 8 or Final Four, that becomes a really cool story. But that's not a Cinderella, but
yeah, I do feel like we
it's a program Cinderella.
did maybe get screwed out of a couple Cinderellas because St. Louis collapsed in the second half against Michigan, just couldn't hold up. And Utah State really impressed and honestly made it a game with Arizona, and it really feels like those were two teams that a lot of people, I'm not like in the know enough with bracketology to know, but they felt like those teams were underseeded. And so it's like it really sucks potentially that both those teams had to play 1 seeds in the round of 32. Because maybe if they're like a 7 and they can play a 2 seed, or even one of them ended up being a 6 and they get to play a 3 seed, one of those two teams are still dancing and they kind of fulfill that role. But yeah, if we want to touch on second week storylines, we can, but also we can do that Thursday if we want.
Yeah, let's do that Thursday.
Cool.
I was just going to say the model 18-21 against the spread, 31-9 outright. I will say that if you set the outright of like 5.5 points or more as a favorite, it's 17-1. So in games where I had a team favored by 5.5 points or more, 17-1. But yeah, a couple really bad beats. The TCU Ohio State game was tough. Santa Clara Kentucky was tough. VCU North Carolina was very tough. Had that game as a spread of 0 with North Carolina as like a 0.2 point favorite. So I picked them, and then they end up losing in overtime to VCU.
What a collapse, man.
But yeah, tough week for the model, but still a lot of games left. We'll see if we can get back to we're above 500.
Yeah, North Carolina is North Carolina was favored by
0.2 points. And so it was technically 0, right? Because I rounded it to the nearest half point. So the spread was 0. But for my bracket, I picked North Carolina.
Well, then you did that wrong.
Hold up. Let me...
double check that, because if that's the case, you did that wrong.
So I had North Carolina. I had the spread as 0.
Yep.
And North Carolina was favored by -1.5. So I picked VCU.
Yes. To cover the spread.
To cover the spread, which they did.
Correct.
But I technically had North Carolina as my outright favorite to win, so I picked them in my bracket and lost.
Okay.
So I
see what you mean.
Yeah. You can see here, like that's against the spread. I was right. That's outright. I was wrong. So, but it was really fun.
Go back through, and maybe take the time to see if you picked a favorite or not a favorite. Actually, you can just do it either side. If you picked one side of the spread, also like bet the money line on it. Like just go re-look up that and see if that did well for you. Because I did that on my pyramid at the end of the season.
Yeah. Because
and
I did pick a
was
couple
up
upsets.
like 10 units. Yeah, and you could have picked a big there weren't very big upsets.
I was all over
High Point.
and
Yeah.
I was all over St. Louis over Georgia, which Georgia was only a 1.5 point favorite, so the money line there wouldn't have been great. But those were two upsets that I picked. Screw Texas, man. I mean, screw Texas.
Y'all got to hold me to this next year when we get to this point. So last year, Georgia's in the 8-9 game and gets just slaughtered by UConn. Didn't look like they showed up to play.
UConn was a 8 seed last year.
Because in the second round, they took Florida to the wire.
Yep.
2 years ago, they were the 1 seed, and then
Correct.
2 years before that, they were the 4 seed.
This year, Georgia in the 8-9 game again doesn't really look like they show up. They just get massacred.
Mhm.
So I think I picked Georgia both times.
Third time's the charm.
No, don't let me do it again. Y'all got to hold me accountable there because that's bad. I do think there's you should follow trends. Like it's one of the better ways. I mean, for example, one of the reasons I picked High Point to win, I do like High Point, so there's some subjectivity there. But Greg Gard is not good in the tournament. He's now lost as the 5 seed. He's 0-3 all time in the tournament.
That's tough.
And they've lost to 3 12 seeds. So gotta look at trends.
I think my goal is to build a really bad model that's right 10% of the time and then just fade it every time. I feel like that's got to be instead of just building a model that's right all the time, build one that's wrong all the time and then fade it.
But how do you build like a wrong objective model?
You don't. It's not. I mean, it's the same as building a right objective model.
I guess.
It's not actually any easier. I think it's just funny to be like, oh, instead of trying to get it right, I'm just going to work really hard on getting it wrong.
That would be maybe a niche in like the content creation space.
Yeah, no one is working on being really bad.
I have built this model and you should fade it, and here's why.
It's right 8% of the time.
Yeah. If you get that, send it my way.
All right.